Moving to Florida can be very exciting, but these are the 5 things that people often overlook when they're making the move. The first mistake that I see people make is that they jump right in to start searching for homes on Zillow before they actually even know where they're looking. The most important factor in relocating to a new state or new area is determining the correct neighborhood for you. You want to consider your day-to-day activities. Think walking the dog, driving the kids to school, maybe walking the kids to school. Do you want a pharmacy within walking distance? Do you want a grocery store within 1 mile? These are all extremely important factors in considering the neighborhood that you're going to move to. The other thing to consider when you're selecting a neighborhood is long-term appreciation. Do you want to be the lowest price home in the neighborhood that's appreciating faster, or the highest price home that's in a neighborhood that's maybe appreciating a little bit slower? These are all things that often get overlooked when you just jump on Zillow and start looking for homes from afar. The second thing people often overlook when they're relocating to South Florida is the implications of insurance. I know we all understand that insurance is a part of the process, but some people don't understand is that 2 homes on the same street, same square footage, could have thousands of dollars in variances in their homeowner's insurance due to the differing components. It's important to pay attention to the age of these major systems: roof, air conditioning, electric, plumbing, and it's also important to look into the flood zone for the area and for the specific home. We want to also get an insurance quote within the inspection period, run that insurance quote by the lender and make sure that the coverage is going to be sufficient for them, and also that it does not affect the debt to income ratio for the buyer themselves. I have had an instance where somebody changed their insurance last minute and it actually put their debt to income ratio too high and almost disqualified them from getting their loan. So these are all things that we want to think about. The third thing that people often overlook when they're relocating to Florida applies specifically to new construction. A lot of times people will buy in new construction communities and not realize that the HOA fees that are quoted may be substantially higher 1, 2, 3 years down the road. One of the major things though with purchasing new construction is that oftentimes the tax figure that they're using is the existing tax figure, which is solely for the dirt on the ground basically. So if you're getting quoted maybe $1,000 a year in taxes, but you're going to buy a $1 million home, when that tax bill resets in the next year, that tax bill could easily jump to $15,000 a year or more depending on the specific municipality. Now, I'm not saying that this always happens or that it's not always disclosed, but I have seen in many cases where this tax figure is not disclosed anywhere and buyers are hit with this $10,000 to $15,000 increase in taxes that they were not planning for and in some cases cannot afford. So this is definitely something that you want to pay attention to if you're buying new construction, which is very common in South Florida. The fourth thing that people often overlook when relocating to South Florida is the variances in prices on a street by street basis. Values and prices are hyper local in every single one of the submarkets in South Florida. So when you're seeking out a home, you really want to look, is this home in a flood zone? You know, one side of the street may be on a flood zone, the other side may not. Similarly, what municipality am I in? On the north side of the street, I may be in an unincorporated county. On the south side of the street, I may be in one of the most coveted neighborhoods. Being in an unincorporated portion of one of the counties has its advantages in that taxes are usually lower, there's less rules and regulations, less bodies to go through when you're doing improvements, things of that nature. However, there are definitely added benefits to being in some of these premier towns and cities throughout South Florida. You get the added panache of being in a Coral Gables or a Boca Raton, but you usually also have additional taxes that are attributed to that municipality. The last thing that people often overlook when relocating to South Florida is timing. And I'm not talking about timing the entire real estate market to try to buy at the bottom or things of that nature. I'm talking about timing as in the timing in your timeline to relocate or purchase. We often get people reaching out very late in the process. They'll reach out and say, I have a new job, I'm going to be moving to Miami, I need to find a place in 2 weeks. or I'm moving to Boca, I need to get my kids in school, they need to be enrolled by the end of the month, or something of that nature. This really puts a lot of pressure on the relocation process. You don't have time to do that scouting mission, explore what your wants and needs are for daily activities, etc. All the things that really are required to make a relocation successful. The process of relocating to a new state has a lot of moving parts. If you can avoid those 5 pitfalls, you're already ahead of the curve and on your way to a successful relocation.